Hi everyone. We are here live from Simon & Schuster to discuss the library book by Susan Orlean, which is our book club favorites pick for October. And we figured that if we're discussing the library book, we wanted to invite some librarians to talk about it with us. So I'm joined today by two librarians. My name is Elizabeth Breeden. I work here at Simon & Schuster, and the library book is one of my favorite books. And I'm joined today by Nancy.
Hi, I'm a librarian at the Jefferson Market branch of the New York Public Library.
And Melissa.
Yes, hi, I'm a technical services librarian at the Thomas J. Watson Library, which is actually the Metropolitan Museum of Art's main research library.
So we have two dream guests here, and we will also be and you will have a chance to ask them all about their jobs and what it's like to be a librarian, and by asking a question in the comments, you will also be entered for a chance to win this month's a copy of this month's book club favorites pick, which is the library book, and a copy of next month's pick, which we will announce at the end of this video. So we will have 5 winners, and you can enter by asking a question in the comments, and it doesn't have to be about library work. It can be about the book, it can be about Susan Orlean, and we will try to answer them. But just to get us started, if you are unfamiliar with the library book, it is by a Susan Orlean. She is a New Yorker staff writer, and she wrote about the library fire at the Los Angeles Public Library. So this book is partly a true crime investigation as she dives into what actually happened in the 80s when this fire took place and really destroyed just thousands and thousands of books. But it's also a love letter to an institution and to libraries and librarians and everything that they do for our culture and society. So if you love books, this is definitely one you have to check out. Pun intended. Yeah.
You can check it out from the New York Public Library.
And you can check it out from the New York Public Library. Comment below if you have a library card too. I feel like we should get some bonus points if you have a library card.
Yes, and I will get a lot of bonus cards if I get library card sign-ups. So.
Yeah, we'll go back in and we'll link to at least the New York Public Library where you can go in and figure out how to sign up for a library card in the comments below.
The link,
So I think it would also be interesting to start with discussing some of our early library memories, because this is also something that Susan talks about in the book. She discusses going to the library with her mother and how it was this great kind of adventure to go and feel like she was shopping amongst the stacks and be able to walk away with all of these books. And I feel like everyone kind of has that experience, especially if you grow up to be a bibliophile.
Yeah, I mean, I still have my library card that I got when I was 5 at my, municipal library with my name written in like huge block letters on the back.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
My fiance has his too, and it's his like name scrawled out. It's so amazing.
That's so cute.
Yeah. I actually have a keychain now of all the library cards that I've collected from all the different places that I've lived, which is not so many, but it's like a sentimental thing.
So how many library cards do you think you have?
I have 6 right now, so yeah.
I loved in the book when one of the first female head librarians at the library changes the age requirement to any child that can write his own name, his or her own name.
Yeah.
And it's like it just opened up this whole world of possibility.
Yeah. So empowering. I loved in the beginning when she talks about going to the library with her mother, as a young child, and she just writes about like the smells and the sounds, and it brought back so many memories of me going to the library with my parents and walking, and I can remember like the exact path, and you walked by a cafe, and like you were kind of enveloped with just like the environment in there, and so relatable. Yeah.
That's one thing that I feel like Susan Orlean does so well, though, is she really is so good at putting you in the place where she's writing. And I just, there were times, especially in the beginning, but really throughout the book, where I felt like I was remembering and not actually reading, because she is so spot on about so many things, about not just working in the library but visiting the library, the types of people that you see on both sides of the desk in the library, what the smells,
exactly. No, that's a great point. I was reading it, but I was like vividly remembering, and I like that was so enjoyable to like go back there and
Actually, that makes me want to ask, what was it like to, like you said, go behind the desk, like you're on both sides? How did you become a librarian?
I feel like, so I became a librarian the same way that I feel like many people become librarians, and this is something that Susan Orlean writes in the book, is that people take odd paths.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they walk across the country to become a librarian,
and then
sometimes they just sort of fall into the profession, right? So I was actually pursuing an academic career, and I was getting a master's in English literature, kind of hoping that I was going to be an English professor, and I got a job in the university library in the like archive and special collections, actually at Fales, at NYU.
Oh, cool.
Which is like a super cool place.
Yeah,
so shout out to Fales.
That's so much fun.
So then I sort of was like, hey, maybe I could do this. And then I got a job at the New York Public Library shortly after getting my MA, and then I got my MLIS while I was working at New York Public.
That's great. Yeah. I feel like that's one thing a lot of people don't know, is that being a librarian, you have to have a master's degree, and if you're an academic librarian, you have to have 2 master's degree, which is a lot of time and commitment, and it's definitely it's a thing.
Well, that's actually it brings us back to what we're talking about right now, and we actually have a question from one of our viewers. Lucille has asked, do you both have your Masters of Librarian Science? So I think it's really interesting that there are a lot of different ways that people can get into this profession.
Yeah, absolutely. I was working actually in nonprofits after I graduated with my undergraduate degree, and I worked for about 5 years, and I knew I wanted to go back for a master's, but it took me a long time to figure out what. And the one thing I just kept coming back to was books. I love books, and the MLIS, the Masters of Library Science, it's such an umbrella of a degree. You can do so many different things. I could work in publishing, or I could be a librarian, which I am, and it's so it's a great degree to have, I think.
That's definitely what a lot of people in publishing say as well, where it's like, well, I'm not sure exactly how I got here. I just knew that I really loved books. And so everything just kind of eventually like ended up here. And once again, we do have a giveaway for the library book, which we're discussing right now, and you can enter for a chance to win one of 5 copies, and you won't just win this month's pick, you'll also win next month's pick you can enter by asking a question in the comments. So please keep them coming. I'm getting alerts as questions are coming in, and we would love to know what you all are interested in. One thing that we also have today, because we really went into the theme of libraries and librarians, and so we found some library trivia.
Okay.
So I'm going to reach into this bag right here and pull out a question. And we did not prep them for this, so we'll see. Okay. Which city claims the first large free municipal library in the United States?
I think it's in Boston.
Me too.
Yeah.
You're right. Boston.
I was really worried I was going to get that wrong.
The Boston Public Library was founded in 1848 by an act of the Great and General Court of Massachusetts.
Well, thank you.
So I'm very impressed. That's awesome. Yeah. So we have some more questions.
Okay.
So Tammy wrote that her favorite passage was when Susan describes herself trying to burn a book.
Oh, yeah.
Has anyone tried to do the same?
Oh my gosh.
And just to give a little bit of a backstory, so you don't think that Susan is some sort of monster.
Yes.
She was she was following the investigation into a potential arsonist who may have been behind the fire, and she couldn't really wrap her head around how someone could willfully destroy something and destroy a book. And so she decided that she had to do it for herself for journalistic purposes.
Yeah.
And so she burns a copy of Fahrenheit 451, which, as most people know, is a book by Ray Bradbury about a dystopian future where people do burn books. I loved that she did that.
I did too. I thought that was an amazing passage as well. And I was, I've never tried to burn a book, I actually haven't really read that much about burning books and book burning. But I was so surprised in that passage that she said it burned so quickly that as soon as it caught, it just ate the book page by page, and then just was a pile of ashes.
Yeah.
Which for some reason I thought it would be harder to burn.
Smoldering.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never burned a book.
No.
I was kind of like, why is she doing this in this passage? I was like, I get it's you're trying to recreate a scenario, and I was kind of like, all right, well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I thought it was interesting to her, the passage leading up to that, her deciding which book to burn, and how she just couldn't decide, and it was taking her weeks and weeks. And finally, I think she said it was her husband that just gave her a copy of Fahrenheit 451 and was
it was fitting.
Go forth, burn this book. Yeah.
Okay, I have to confess something. I technically have burnt a book.
Okay.
But it was a manuscript, and it was manuscript pages. It was a first draft. It was never going to go anywhere, and I wouldn't have been able to share it with anyone. And I was also camping, and so I was done with the book.
I was going to say, did you need fire?
And I used it for kindling.
Yeah.
Anyways,
oh, that's so
I'm probably going to get fired. So
was it a manuscript that you wrote?
Oh no, it was
okay. I was
we then published and printed many copies of the book.
Okay.
I will not be saying what the book was. Well, but it was a great read, and then I just
have to know.
didn't want to carry it home, and we did need kindling. Anyways.
Okay. That's acceptable.
For a later discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another audience question. Probably, why do I still have my job? Okay, from Marcia, what is the most beautiful library you have ever visited?
Oh my gosh. What an awesome question.
I know.
I mean, can I say the New York Public Library?
I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean, I realize that I'm biased, but I mean, so the Jefferson Market Library is very beautiful, and I will never hear the end of it if I don't cite that as one from my manager.
It is a beautiful branch, yeah.
Right, but the main branch on 42nd Street. If you haven't been, if you're in this, if you live in the city, or if you're
ever visiting,
visit the city,
it's really easy to get to
gorgeous.
In Manhattan.
Yeah, it's something special.
I know, when they closed the Rose Room for a while, and they were doing some renovations, it was so sad because I always wanted to go and sit in there and read after work, and just couldn't for a while. But now it's back open.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
That's a tough question, but I feel like the Morgan Library is probably up there for me.
Okay, that's
just
fair.
that one. I mean, their main library room, I guess, that you can walk in. It always reminds me of Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
because it just has these sweeping, tall bookcases, and I know that behind some of those stacks, there's little secret stairwells that go up, and so I always can kind of get lost in my own daydreams in that library.
Yeah. I love those BuzzFeed listicles. It's the top 200 libraries you need to visit, or around the world. And it's
my friend was just at the Trinity Library in Ireland, and I'm just he was
so amazing.
I was texting with him, and he's I was thinking of you while I was there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's definitely high up on my list.
I would love to go on a trip just to library hop, through Ireland and the rest of the UK. And,
I know. I'm surprised that's not its own industry.
I know. Maybe I should. Second career.
Yeah.
Library tours.
Well, have you guys ever been to the LA Public Library?
I haven't. I've actually never been to LA, and I want to go. And now after reading this book and loving it so much, I'd want to go even more, because that's just another destination where I'm it'd be amazing to see.
Yeah.
I was Googling it a lot while I was reading this book, and every time I found a new image that I hadn't seen before of, just especially of the interior, it looks like it's such an interesting space. And she sort of describes the architecture a little bit later on in the book, where she talks about the different decisions that the architect all good
Hue.
Good Hue.
Yes.
Yeah. That he made because he like sort of didn't want it to be Gothic, and he didn't want it to be classic, and it was sort of this sort of amalgamation of different sort of things, and it was just a temple for. It was just like a temple to human knowledge, enterprise, and it just sound. And then I looked it up, and I was like, "Wow, it does look like a really beautiful place."
I'm surprised I didn't. I'm surprised I didn't Google images of the interior. I was looking at pictures outside, but the inside sounds amazing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I was really surprised by in the book was how she talked about the history of the building of the library and how it changed as LA itself was changing and new ideas were coming in, and how it's like Hollywood took over and then kind of like receded again, and during the Great Depression how that changed not just the like building and maintenance of the building, but also the types of people who were coming in, and how it turned into such a community space, whereas when libraries first were founded, it was more of like an upper class like space, and and then it turned into something that everyone could use.
Yeah, I mean, so that sort of narrative that she has in the book about how it was always acting and reacting into the to the population of the Los Angeles community is such a familiar story, because I know in library school most programs make you take a history of library and information science course. It's one of the core requirements, and there are lots of books that have been published that sort of tell the story of libraries in America. And one of the special things about this book is I think that she does that, but just through this one particular library. Because I kept hearing like just different pieces of the history of the Los Angeles Library are just so exactly similar to what I'd read about other libraries. So it really was such a good example to pick.
We have some more trivia.
Oh no.
If you're ready.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys wowed me on the last one.
All right.
Where is the world's oldest still operating library? Because we were just talking about the history of libraries.
Oh, I think I know this. Can I go for it?
Yeah.
I think that it's in Morocco.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you guys are killing it with the history and geography.
It's definitely
question.
the Middle East somewhere,
exactly.
but I was gonna say like I don't know what I was gonna say.
Yeah, you got it.
No, my
it's in Fez, Morocco.
Fez,
and it was founded by a woman in 859 CE.
Yeah, it was.
Which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Of course it was.
Fiance and I went to Morocco in March. He's also a librarian at NYU.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was on our list of like we really want to try and get here, but we didn't. But
so you really should start this like library travel industry, because now you have the inside scoop.
Exactly.
Well, that's awesome. And speaking of questions, make sure you're still asking questions in the comments. By asking a question, you will be entered for a chance to win a copy of the library book, which is this month's pick, and a copy of next month's pick, which we will announce the title of at the end of this video. So stay tuned. And also, if you're not following the Book Club Favorites group, make sure you follow and join, and you can get all the updates of everything that we're doing with book clubs and book club favorite picks at Simon & Schuster. So, yeah.
True crime.
True crime.
I love true crime.
So before we started filming, we were talking a little bit about the true crime angle of the book, which Susan opens by basically introducing the man that was the suspect for the arson suspect, and then takes you along the journey of the investigation. What did you think about it?
I consume so much true crime, so I loved that story was obviously included in like a focal story of this, but it didn't. And I think you mentioned this, like the whole book wasn't about the investigation. I feel like it's hard to talk about without like giving away the ending. I know, Nancy, you mentioned like we can't talk about the ending.
Yeah,
you know
I know.
I mean?
I really wish I could talk about the ending.
But it's just
I love how she wraps it up.
I do too, and he's such an interesting suspect. And I'll just say that as I was reading it, I was just flipping back and forth, how I felt about his innocence.
Yeah.
Yes, and
or guilt.
Or guilt. Or guilt, exactly.
I totally agree because
Yeah.
he also was someone who's very of his time in LA, and he's an actor, and
Yes.
you know, Susan goes and interviews a lot of people who knew him and his family members, and you really get this like very three-dimensional portrait of who this man was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
It's fun.
So we have another audience question. Okay. Erica used to work at a library. Hello, Erica. And knows sometimes old books are sold to create room for new books on shelves. Do all libraries do this? And how do you decide what to sell and what to keep?
Well, Erica, I think that what you are describing is the practice of weeding. I am. I'm a big weeder. It's a necessary evil. I know. So actually, believe it or not, the New York Public Library rents the vast majority of its library books from another company. So we actually, when we weed a book, we send it back to that company, and they do whatever they do with it. Maybe they recycle
kind of a
it.
Beautiful image.
It
just like kind of keeps floating around.
Yeah. So the life cycle of a book is, sometimes it's really short. So we might order 20 copies of a bestseller, and then, the popularity will wane, and we don't have space for those 20 books, when they're not all checked out. So we might let one or two live on the shelf. So, I mean, it's a dog eat dog or a book eat book world on the public library's shelves. So yeah.
Do you have to do that at the Met as well?
We do, and our experience in libraries is so different. We're not in a public library, so the Met, we would never order 20 copies of a book. We most likely just have one. So a lot of our weeding practice comes from circulation statistics. So if it's really time to make more space, we're going to start running reports of, okay, well, what hasn't circulated in the past 3 years, the past 5 years, so that helps inform our
decisions.
Yeah. So
that is fascinating.
Yeah.
That's kind of, before before we started filming, we were talking about our own personal libraries, and I'm a weeder.
You are?
Yeah. I only have books. I have maybe 5 books in my apartment that I've already read before, and the rest are all ones that I will read, and then once I read them, I give them away. I send them off somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I don't know if I could maintain. I can't maintain and curate, so I'm impressed by people who can.
Yeah. I feel like that's people that work in the book industry, whether you're a librarian or in publishing, that's so typical because you're around books all day, so when you go home, it's you don't necessarily want to come home to
books on the floor.
A recording situation.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we do have another question, and again, if you keep asking questions, you'll be entered for a chance to win a copy of the library book and a copy of next month's book, so keep them coming. Janine asks, what do you think when people say that physical libraries are dead or dying because of so much being available on the internet? I'm looking to both of you, but I know you have an opinion.
Not everything is on the internet.
That's true.
It's amazing how much information is not on the internet. And I think the physical space of a library is so important because they truly belong to the community, and it's a place for the community to come and, have access to vetted, incredible information. And
right. A lot of the good stuff is behind a paywall, too, online, which libraries will pay for
you.
So that's one thing. But, another thing, and this is something that Susan Arlene gets right, I think, in this book, is that she kind of talks about the future of libraries. She talks about this issue, not at length, but she brings it in here and there. And that this obsolescence is really sort of a myth. And the library has been constantly reinventing itself since it started. And that continues now in the 21st century where, you go into the public library and it's just as much a community center where there are story times and book discussion groups and maker spaces and all kinds of other things going on besides just people checking in and checking out books. So,
I loved one of the like descriptions of watching all of the community events happening at the LA Public Library. Was Susan watched all of these young people come in with strollers, and that there was a stroller jam because everyone was coming in for story time. And I just love the idea of a stroller jam in a library.
Listen, we have so many stroller jams at the Jefferson Market Library. We are literally getting a renovation to
accommodate
the strollers. So, well, not just the strollers, but so the stroller jams are real.
We actually had to hire like an usher for our story time at the Met actually has like 25 libraries. So one of the libraries, Nolan, has story time, and we had to hire an usher because it gets so crazy. Just kind of amazing.
That's wonderful.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us and celebrating this amazing book. We will continue to have giveaways, so please keep asking questions and entering. But we also want to announce our next month's book selection, which is hidden in the trivia bag. Mrs. Fletcher. And you might recognize that this will be an HBO series, but it was a book first, and hopefully you will join in next month to discuss. And again, if you enter for a chance to win, you will 5 winners will get a copy of the library book and a copy of Mrs. Fletcher. So I hope you take a chance to read Susan Orlean's book. And thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you. This is really fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.